Yeah, you are recording as
Okay.
always. As always, I'm also recording. So if anything happens to your recording, let me know and I can send it to you.
Lovely. And okay, can I lose you as well?
You were going to lose me. I'm gonna, as soon as you see me go on mute, I will not do any. So it'll just be you two. You won't see me.
But I just want to do the gallery vision. That's all as
Oh,
well.
you want the focus just on Bob?
Yes, please.
Okay, give me 1 second. Like that. Yep, that's so it'll be on Bob. Yep,
No,
yep.
what I'm trying to do from my end is just do gallery with me and Bob, but I've got your name beside mine.
Oh, hold on. I'll just give me 1 second.
Not that I don't love you, Evan. It's just that
No, I got you. I got it. How do I do that gallery view?
you might have
Oh,
to
I see it.
leave.
Yep. You might have to. Well, no, because I'm hosting the meeting, so that's why it's tough. I can't leave necessarily, but I am on gallery vision, Gareth. Now,
Yeah, but I've got you next to me and Bob underneath. It's a bit strange looking, but
no, if I do the focus on Bob, you won't see. That's why if I do the focus on Bob, you'll just have Bob. You won't see me.
yeah, but I'd like to see
I'm
both of us because I'm going to ask some questions.
okay, hold on. How about that? You can't see me now.
No, nothing's changing. No, nothing's changing. It's all right. Don't. Never mind. We'll just crack on. Never mind. No problem. No problem.
All right.
No problem. We'll run out of time if we don't. Bob, how are you anyway?
Good, good, good. I'm in LA. Weather's beautiful. Everything good.
Well, I first want to say happy 92nd birthday for Friday.
Right? Yeah, 92nd.
Doing anything special?
Yeah, we have all the family coming here. We're doing a nice party on Friday night, and it continues on Saturday. Most everybody is staying for a second crack at the apple.
Brilliant. I might as well ask you this first of all. How does boxing, and particularly heavyweight boxing, look to you now at 92 as maybe as opposed to say 42, but maybe 42 because it's 50 years you've been around it.
Well, that's sort of unfair because obviously, as an old guy, I have so much feeling for the Ali era and what we did during that era. That being said, heavyweight boxing is probably more vital now than it's been in a long, long time. We have so many terrific heavyweights from all over the world, and the competition should be really great among them. And this December 23 card in Riyadh, which pits many of the top heavyweights against each other, is really splendid. And that continues to February, where there'll be an undisputed heavyweight champion, God willing. So it's really not fair, Garrett, comparing it to the Ali era. But other than that, we're in a really great position with heavyweight boxing.
I completely concur. We'll get into that in a little bit of detail in a moment, but it just struck me, given it's your birthday on Friday, that you mentioned the Ali era. It was 1962 when you were working with the Department of Justice that Sonny Liston and Floyd Patterson had fought, yeah? And it seems extraordinary.
61.
61, sorry.
Floyd Patterson fought. And this bespectacled, because I had glasses then, lawyer with the U.S. Attorney's Office was designated by Bobby Kennedy to organize the seizure of all the funds from that fight.
Was that the first heavyweight fight you'd really delved into? Had you delved into anything prior to that in terms of interest or fascination or knowledge or awareness?
Absolutely, I never paid attention to anything except we all did when I was really a young boy growing up. When Joe Louis would fight, particularly that second fight that Lewis had
With Max
against
Schmeling.
Max Schmeling.
Yeah.
I think that really fascinated the entire world.
Did it really have global implications at the time? Did you feel? Did it
Well,
feel
I was too young to understand what global ramifications it had. All I knew is that Joe Louis represented democracy, and Schmeling, whether he liked it or not, represented Nazi fascism. That's how I think people in America, at least the ones I knew, I remember very young, looked at it.
Well, we get to 1966, and you become a promoter. Of course, I can't almost believe that in a couple of years' time it'll be 60 years that you've been doing it. Is that I asked you just now about how the difference is? I wanted to look at the stages of, like you say, this purple era, this purple patch with Muhammad Ali. Was the Liston, Ali, Foreman, Lewis, Tyson, Mike Tyson, Klitschko, Fury, all these eras, have they been emblematic of change in boxing, every single one of them? Have they all brought different change?
Well, I think it's fairer to say that these fights took place, many of them, when boxing was undergoing changes. For example, the first fight that I did, Ali and Shaballo, there were no satellites. So we had to fly, we called it a kinescope, which is a movie of the fight, to London that night. So it reached there the next day so that the UK fans could see the fight on BBC the next night. And then gradually we got the international satellites, which allowed a fight to take place in the UK, like the second Ali Henry Cooper fight, and send it over by satellite so that it could be seen live in the United States in the afternoon, because the fight was in the UK in the evening and it was in ABC, televised it on Wide World of Sports in the afternoon. But there was only one international satellite at the time, so you had to schedule the fight when you could reserve that satellite to send over the video to the United States.
If I was to look at those eras, though, in terms of what they represented at the time, how big their reach was, why the reach was big, outside broadcast, obviously broadcast is an enormous part of the jigsaw that you're putting together, always a promoter. You'll never get away from that, because bums on seats, as it used to be, cinemas, pay-per-view now, reach is really important. But in the actual eras, obviously that Liston era, and then into Ali, and then Ali, Foreman, Frazier, Holmes, and then Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield. Do you count those as the two great eras of the heavyweight division, like many people do?
Not really. What I look at it, I look at how electronically everything changed. You know, at first and during the Ali, most of the Ali era, we either put the fights on live free television, or if it was a really big fight, we put it on closed circuit, which meant that people could watch it in theaters and arenas, and for better or for worse, because the equipment got better as the years went on. And then when Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson were fighting, was the start of pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Because of domestic satellites, we could offer the fight to fans on a pay basis in their own home for a fee. And that, of course, changed all the dynamics. So, yeah, these fighters were all great fighters, all legendary, whether it was Ali and Frazier, and Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield and George Foreman. But it was really the changes in electronics that fueled each of their eras.
Because I just look at it, the older I get now, the more I appreciate Lennox Lewis, the more I appreciate Mike Tyson. I'm genuinely feeling that when I'm around them now, and they're nearly 60. You start to really appreciate them. You look back, you savor the fights. We're in this era now where everybody's got an opinion as well. It's gone beyond theaters to CCTV to this social media era where everybody's got a voice, everybody's got a viewpoint, everybody's an expert, and a lot of people are complaining as well. And I've always held true, and I have certainly through this era, that we will get all these big fights. The only fight we didn't get in the Lewis, Mike Tyson, Klitschko really era was Lewis and Bo. That was the only fight that didn't happen, and that happened for political reasons and the nuance of negotiation. In this era now, Fury, Usyk, Joshua, Wilder, Makhmudov, Sanchez, and the other guys, the younger guys we're going to speak about, has Saudi Arabian investment and interest, and this time in the world where they want to become a very modern economy and open up to visitors, has that shifted heavyweight boxing again in line with Showtime stopping and HBO stopping? I know you're still intrinsic with ESPN and they are enormous and you have an enormous deal with them, but is this another sign that the heavyweight division is the division that's shifting things again globally?
Well, I don't know about that. What I know is that with Saudi Arabia taking an interest in boxing, up to this point, heavyweight boxing, that has made these events much easier to make because there's a lot less infighting over purses and percentages, because His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh, who is running things, determines how much each fighter is worth, and it's so far above what the fighters would make, for example, as a percentage of pay-per-view, that determines the market. So obviously, it's so much easier to make those fights because you don't spend endless time negotiating the minutia, because each fighter, for example, and Fury and Usyk, are getting purses that they wouldn't have dreamed about 2 or 3 years ago,
or even 8 months ago, maybe.
Even 8 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, am I right in my viewing of it to see that these fights do happen because of timing, ego, and money, and when all three come together, we've got more. Even if 2 of the 3 come together, we get them.
Well, you could say ego and all of that sort of stuff,
Well, because I mean, the purse splits, Bob.
But
You know, I want
really,
70, I want 30, I want 50, 50.
really,
You know,
the important is money.
absolutely. Yeah.
And once there's money, and it's real money, and it shows itself, everything is easier to accomplish.
Mm.
And because the Saudi entertainment venture realizes that the money that they're spending is minuscule when it's put up against what they're trying to accomplish, which is to make Saudi Arabia in general and Riyadh specifically a sports and entertainment capital of the world. Everything becomes a lot easier to accomplish.
But when you see that happening, and I wondered about asking you this, do you see? I mean, it's not Las Vegas they're creating. Las Vegas is different. Las Vegas is Las Vegas. It's, you know, and you've been there a long time with your offices there and running your business top ranking there. But it's a place where you may have giant casinos eventually. I don't know if they'll be betting or giant hotels on giant venues, and it may be similar to Las Vegas as destinations to go for big fight nights and big fight weeks and big sporting weeks.
Well, Garrett, that's beyond my pay grade. Whether they
Okay.
will not have casinos in Riyadh, I would have no idea. But I'm glad you mentioned Vegas, because years ago, in the 70s and particularly in the 80s, Vegas became Vegas largely because they put up the money, which was extremely high at the time, to get these big fights in Las Vegas, attract people, and call everybody's attention more than before to Vegas. For example, the Ali fights in the late 70s, the more important, the four kings, Duran, Leonard, Hagler, and Hearns in the 80s, Mike Tyson, the powers that be in Las Vegas put up what was then enormous sums of money to attract those fights in order to call attention to Las Vegas, which at that point didn't have a professional sports franchise, and it worked. And I really believe that what's happening now in Riyadh and Saudi Arabia, attracting these big events and bringing all these great fighters to perform, will have a similar impact going forward in the future for Riyadh and Saudi Arabia.
On that with Saudi Arabia, surely you must applaud the fact it is a catalyst for different promotional teams working together, i.e. Warren and Hearn over here finally working together, Deontay Wilder, Shelley Finkel, Anthony Joshua on the same card.
Well, again, you know, when there's real money that's shown, and the Riyadh season folks have put up real money, all of these animosities, which seem so important as everybody fought it out, suddenly dissipated because everybody wants in on the events because it's the most lucrative thing that they can do.
It's a sport, but as you keep underlining, and as my mentors have always taught me, you amongst them, boxing's a business, and it'll never get away from that.
That's why they call it professional sports.
Yeah.
Professional means that the athletes, no matter what sport they're in, get paid for what they do. whether it's our American football and basketball or your football, which we call soccer, those sports are all businesses that the participants make money, sometimes earth-changing money. And the franchises, the teams are operated in the same way as most businesses are. That's not surprising. That's what professional sports means. It's no longer amateur, where you can get people to participate in return for a medal, whether it's gold or silver, but that's what they're participating. No, they're participating for real money, and in certain instances, for life-changing money.
I haven't mentioned him with you for a long time, but you and Don King were obviously enormous rivals. I want to say in your pomp, you're still in your pomp with what you're doing at the moment. I'm going to go through your stable in a minute, but do you think you and Don King would have actually been working more together in this era if he'd been promoting more as well?
Well, a couple of the biggest fights that King and I did, we did jointly for that reason, because the money was so overwhelming that rather than continue to backbite each other, we came together to do the promotions, like De La Hoya and Trinidad and Leonard and Durant first fight.
A lot of the questions people were saying the other day was, did Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn actually talk to each other? When you and Don King came together, did you actually get on well?
Well, funny enough, in promoting the fight, we had a great understanding. And that was that we at Top Rank would handle the business, and King would handle the microphone pretty much. And as long as we were accountable, which we were to him, it worked almost seamlessly. You know, even though there was such animosity and such hatred at that point between us, when it came to doing a big promotion and dividing up the money, it went really unquestionably smoothly.
And he's 92 already, so I wonder if you two are going to do one more last hurrah, one more dance together. Who knows? We just don't know.
Well, you know, a number of years ago, it seemed like sort of the end. We did a fight that wasn't really that big a fight. It was Miguel Cotto and Mayorga. And because it was King and myself going crazy, it really did great business and attracted a lot of interest. So I think people would like to see the two dinosaurs get back together for a promotion.
The two T-Rexes of the heavyweight promotional business.
Exactly. So I don't know whether it can happen, whether it will happen, because I think our company, Top Rank, has moved into another era, you know, so much is dependent on social media and getting out your message and all of that sort of stuff than it was before, where we hit each other over the head, and writers all over the world would write about this feud and what I said and what he said. Things have changed, and the younger people are not interested in that as they were before. But who knows? I sort of believe that if King and I did a big promotion together on opposite sides, it would attract a lot of interest.
It would.
A lot of laughs. Yeah, who knows how many pay-per-view buys it would produce.
And your rival you could do on social media. Your senior PR guy, Evan Korn, who's on that, his name's here on the call, obviously. He's also reminding me that you did another fight together in 2018 as well, Jose Ramirez against Amir Imam as well.
Yeah, that was, I remember that fight. That was in the theater at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. So
and it was on ESPN, and ESPN, always looking for a good angle, had us the day before come together for a breakfast at this Irish restaurant near Madison Square Garden for a sit down, which they filmed, and they ran part of it before the fight, and it was absolutely hilarious.
Gloves are off. Was it gloves are off, or were you just reminiscing?
You know, it hit some really good topics, as I remember.
Yeah.
And then Don, being Don, said to the producer, now he said, anything you use on this telecast of the fight, go ahead and use. But if you use it, and the footage was great, as I remember, you have to pay me. And then he looked, you have to pay me, meaning King. And then he looked over at me and he said, and also you got to pay Arum. So he was like acting as my agent. But it was terrific footage. We really reminisced and took some shot at each other, which we can't help but do. And I really got to review that footage again because it was really classic.
Well, I think bringing it up, it's only 5 years ago, so ESPN must have that footage there somewhere.
Of course they do. So do we.
You've got it, have you? You've got it.
Yeah. Yes.
Before I just talk about this current crop of heavyweights, just going back, one question I wanted to ask about Liston and what you managed to investigate at the time, and it was over, as you said, seizure over funds from the broadcast, wasn't it? You know,
It wasn't. What happened is the promoter of that fight, Patterson-Liston fight,
yeah,
was a nefarious attorney named Roy Cohn.
Yeah.
Now, Roy Cohn was the attorney who linked up with Joe McCarthy, but he had a role to play in history, which nobody realized at the time, because he became the mentor to Donald Trump.
That's right. I do remember this, yes.
And Trump was taught how to answer questions,
yeah,
and how to deflect criticism.
Cohn had a lot of front, Bob, didn't he? A lot of front. He was a real front guy, wasn't he?
Who?
Cohn. He had a lot of front about him.
No, he was a very intelligent guy, but very bad guy. And Bobby Kennedy was the attorney general, who was my boss, and he had gotten information that Cohn was going to take the money from the fight, which everybody realized at the time was going to be enormous, and take it out of the country and pay Patterson on a deferred payment basis, which you couldn't do at the time. And so on that basis, Bobby Kennedy, who hated Roy Cohn, had us seize the money, and I led the seizure, all the revenue offices in pay-per-view, in closed-circuit box offices and at the gate. We seized all of the money from the fight and broke up that scheme. And I remember taking the deposition of Roy Cohn for 10 days. You could do it then. 10 long days. And so when I hear today how Donald Trump answers questions and how he obfuscates when you zero in on him of a serious issue, it's like Roy Cohn all over again,
Yeah.
because Cohn became Trump's lawyer later on, and taught Trump all of his tricks. So, I mean, there is a lot of, when I hear Trump, there's a lot of reminiscing in my mind about how Cohn would answer questions in that 10-day deposition. And because of what I learned handling that case, when I left the U.S. Attorney's Office and went into private practice, a great American football player, Jim Brown, introduced me to Ali, and I became Ali's lawyer and promoter. And that started me in boxing. And I've remained in boxing all of those years.
Yeah, Cohen's very prominent for those watching or listening to this in I think a 3 or 4 part documentary about Donald Trump. It's very, very interesting. That's where I first came across Roy Cohen as well. That's what I said. I found him incredible front, incredible speaker, incredible communicator. But like you say, when Donald Trump's backed up against a wall, he certainly knows his way out of it. We won't get into Trump today because I know that gets your heart rate up. But
no, I mean, listen, you know, there is a lot of bad and a lot of danger in Donald Trump, but also some of what he was advocating is good. I mean, it's okay. It's just the way he did it. But you're right. Let's not get into that.
No, let's not. We've had long conversations about that before, and you normally storm out of the building afterwards. But that was when he was in power. Final one on that era. People always talk about it. Was Sonny Liston in his career controlled by a mob?
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, there wasn't any question that there were mob people and frontmen for the mob involved with him. But I mean, that was never a serious issue. We knew that there was the Nylans were concessionaire people, and they were mob tied, and they were the front men for Sonny Liston. And then there was a guy named Bernie Glickman who was involved with Liston and Ernie Terrell. Yeah, the mob at that particular point in time was embedded in boxing. And it was really, the way I looked at it, when Ali became the champion, and he was a member of the Nation of Islam. There was, as far as the mob was concerned, so much craziness about it that they really didn't want to be involved to the extent that they were, because who needed, in their point, the aggravation? They could still make money from the gambling, from the prostitution, and later from drugs. So their influence in boxing waned from the time Ali beat Sonny Liston.
Well, from there we segue to the modern day. Yourself and Top Ranking, yourself, Todd DeBuff, your son-in-law is obviously a brilliant and instrumental figure in the company as well, and Brad Jacobs, along with Frank Warren. If you look at, I know there's an elision with you guys at the moment that around Tyson Fury, and then you've all got your stables, Daniel Dubois, Jared Anderson, Islanbek Makhmudov. You've got the young man Jalalov now as well, who I met out in Riyadh a month ago. What a huge figure he is. Moses Itauma, Frank Sanchez. Oh, Frank Sanchez not necessarily, because I don't think he's with you, but you've got a huge group of Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua are on board under this umbrella now as well. as you say, God willing, inshallah, we get Fury and Usyk on February the 17th. I'll ask you why you say that in a minute. But are we finally, Bob, in your view, in the next year and a half, going to get all these heavyweight fights we wanted to see in this era?
We will, as long as a group that is headed by His Excellency Turkey Al-Sheikh remains interested in boxing, and he's a tremendous boxing fan.
Yeah.
Because as I said before, with the money being paid by that authority, all petty rivalries are dissipated, and fights can easily happen. So yeah, I really think we're entering into a huge era of interest in the heavyweight boxing division. But also, I think, I imagine that they will also start doing fights in the lighter weight division. So I really think that their influence and their presence in the sport will smooth everything out. For example, at this gala dinner in Riyadh, the night before Fury's fight with Ngannou, they seated me next to the DAZN people, Len Blavatnik and Shay Vega, and we had a really great time, and we sort of bonded.
He's a great guy, isn't he? He's a good guy.
Yeah,
there's no question.
Really, they're great people.
Yeah.
But it was done intentionally because it was important that everybody got along.
Yeah.
And so this December 23rd fight, which will be distributed by DAZN in the United States, will also be offered on pay-per-view by ESPN Plus. And conversely, with the heavyweight championship fight, Fury and Usyk, which will be distributed in the United States by ESPN, DAZN will be a partner distributing the fight to its subscribers.
It's maybe it's a good time for me to ask you this. Then I'll come back to, you say God willing just now, HBO and Showtime no longer there at the end of the year. Are you surprised by that, Bob? Obviously, you're in a fantastic position where you are anyway, but are you surprised that they've gone away? And what's that indicative of, in your view?
Indicative of nothing other than the fact that HBO and Showtime have decided to go into the streaming business and to invest their money rather than in live sports in scripted content. And from their standpoint of HBO, when they did it, and that's why I kept saying Showtime is bound to do the same thing. When you take an HBO, if they invest, and they do, tremendous amounts of money in a scripted
series,
television or movie, it plays and it plays and it plays, and if it's very successful, it's syndicated, and so you can make back much more than you paid for it. With boxing, as with other sports, you pay a lot of money to get it done, and it gets a good rating for the night, but it opens and closes the same night. That is not a good model for HBO or Showtime. It has nothing to do with boxing. That is
business again. Business.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
You know, HBO relied on boxing, particularly Marvin Hagler, which was the first fight they signed, to attract a bigger audience, which they did. And then with Tyson, and they kept boxing kept growing the audience. But again, they realized that once they grew the audience and they produced scripted television that was really unbelievable, like The Sopranos or Sex and the City.
Or Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David.
Nobody was going to leave HBO because the programming was so good. And why spend money for live sports, whose only value was to attract more viewers?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But often what I will say is, though, on the board sometimes when you've got someone, you mentioned His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, who's a huge boxing aficionado. When you've got someone at HBO or Showtime who's very high up on the board sometimes at Viacom, they go, no, we are doing this. It sometimes comes down to individuals, doesn't it?
Well, yes, sometimes, because individuals have different views. But again,
you talk about finances, how the commerce works. Yeah, okay.
HBO, they had as many viewers as they had based on they attracted audiences initially with the boxing. Then they had Sopranos, and then Sex and the City. And the hook went in, and they now had caught their audience. So why spend money for one night stands where you weren't increasing the audience, and
with a great marriage that can go on forever.
Boxing to keep the audience.
Yeah.
So that wasn't based on individuals. I mean, individuals evaluate that maybe differently, but that was what any executive would do.
Bob, I haven't had a chance to speak to you. I spoke to Frank Warren on the morning after the October 28th for the Battle of the Baddest podcast. I haven't had a chance to speak to you yet, and it's a very long time now since Tyson Fury fought Francis Ngannou. Were you as shocked as the rest of the world? What was your takeaway afterwards? Do you think it sharpened Tyson Fury for the Usyk fight? Do we have to praise Francis Ngannou for taking his moment? What was your take of it on the night?
Well, it didn't surprise me, but of course nobody believed what I was saying. But look back at my quotes before that fight.
You came on the Battle of the Baddest podcast and you said, have you seen this guy punch? Have you seen what he's doing in the gym? Have you seen his story? Have you seen this guy's come from?
I had the advantage of living in Las Vegas, and watching some of his training. And I realized he was a marvelous athlete, very, very strong, and could punch like a son of a gun. And when he unloaded that punch on Tyson Fury, and Fury went down, Fury's whole strategy changed because, like everybody else, Fury didn't believe what I was saying. He thought I was typing the fact. He said, this guy can really punch. I've got to take him seriously. And remember, I think the difference in Fury fighting Usyk and Fury fighting Ngannou, with the Ngannou fight, they had no footage on it. They didn't know how he boxed. They didn't know anything about him, really, just what they had read. With Usyk, they have, reams of fights, and they've seen him with Joshua twice, and with other fighters, with Dubois, and so they have a read on him, and they'll train accordingly. So while I believe Usyk is a tremendous fighter and will compete well with anybody, I think Tyson, with his people now having been able to study Usyk, will do a lot better with Usyk than he did with Ngannou, and he better be. But I understand he's training very seriously. Frank told me that he's over in Jeddah, away from all distractions, training for the fight. So I think we'll see a Tyson Fury at the same level that he was for the second and third Wilder fight.
Why did you say, God willing, they fight on February the 17th? Is that just because you just don't want anything to go wrong and we want these 4 belts in the ring at the same time, or 5 belts, whatever it is, in the ring at the same time?
Well, my Saudi brothers, every sentence is inshallah, which means God willing. So I picked that up. No, I didn't say it for any reason. I mean, the fight's signed. The fight is a training.
2 fights, do we understand?
I don't want to go into that, but
Okay.
that is not necessarily wrong. But again, I'm looking forward to February 17th. It'll be a great card. They've spoken to us about the undercard matches, which many of which would be top main events, whether in the UK or the US. So I think it'll be a great night for boxing. And I think December 23rd will be a good hors d'oeuvre leading up to the heavyweight championship.
Well, an hors d'oeuvre is a great way to describe it, but I've got to say, I think it's better than that. I think it's 10 of the top 15 heavyweights in the world.
People stand around and eat hors d'oeuvres longer than they sit and eat the
Correct.
dinner.
Fair enough.
Mean any disparaging, but it is. It's the opening. Yeah, no, it's some terrific fights on December 23rd.
I think if you put the 3 cards, by the time we've had October 28th, December 23, and February the 17th, I think we'll have had the full display of the heavyweight division by those 3 events. I think.
Well, missing one guy that I think will be the future of the heavyweight division, and that's Jared Anderson, who has been unable to compete in those events because he had a bad hand, which has been treated by Dr. Alatrosh and Dr. Shin, and he'll be fighting again in March, and will be a fighter to be really taken into account.
Yeah,
I think it'll be the future of the heavyweight division. So we'll get it. I'm sure we'll get Anderson over in Saudi down the road because I know that His Excellency Turkey loves Anderson.
Well, I've put it on my list here. An interview with Anderson once a month in 2024. It's one of my targets because I know that he's a guy, I want to know his ins and outs. I've already met him 4 times. I think he's an extraordinary character. You were running him out every month and a half this year till he got injured. He's a fantastic character. Speed, timing. He's learning very quickly. Before
great smile. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's a beautiful person. Yeah, he's got all the star qualities. Before I ask you the final question on the heavyweight division today, Ryan Garcia won at the weekend and he called out your megastar, who I think from the lighter divisions, he is the megastar of boxing for me, Shakur Stevenson. I really do think that. You don't necessarily agree with me, I know, because you've got other guys in your stable, but for me, he is something very, very special every time I watch him. Even though he was disappointing last time out, he finds it so easy in a sport that is so difficult. And we forget this. It's so hard to fight.
Gareth, did Garcia call out Shakur?
Shakur called out Shakur. It's a fight we'd love to see.
Well, in 2 seconds I'd make that fight.
Okay.
And Shakur would make
year,
that
please.
fight.
Can we see it next year?
Can we what?
Can we see it next year then, please?
From Shakur's standpoint and from his promoter's standpoint, in 2 seconds. But a fighter calling out another fighter, nowadays means nothing. Got to sit down and put it together. But Shakur has such great confidence in his own ability, and rightly so, that he would welcome that fight. And whether we make it at 135 or a catch weight wouldn't make any difference. I would love to see that fight happen.
Well, Shakur as well, we want to see in against Devin Haney and Tank Davis at some point, because they're both super fights, aren't they? Maybe even with Teo Lopez as well. Maybe all those fights for Shakur are just, for me anyway, as in my own
match fighters are good fighters.
Yeah.
And to make those fights happen would provide a lot of entertainment for the public.
Bob, final question. It's been a heavyweight chat. It's been a heavyweight chat today, covering all areas from politics to the mob, to the sequential growth and ramifications of the heavyweight division over the last 60 years. It's always a pleasure for me to spend time with you. I learned so much. You really are a fantastic mentor. We treasure you in the sports. Again, I want to wish you happy 92nd birthday on Friday, and the love and peace that you'll have with all of your family and the joy. Just tell us, for people who watch this and listen to this, is the heavyweight division in a really good position right now or not?
Well, yeah, again, thanks to the great talent in the division, led by Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, and thanks to the interest of His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh and the Saudi Arabian Entertainment Fund, boxing is never, and heavyweight boxing has never been as robust as it is now. Hopefully that continues. And you know, as we go into next year, I think it will continue. Fights that couldn't be made because fighters were quibbling over this percentage and that percentage, that's no longer the case anymore. There's been a tremendous change in the way fighters think. Fury himself told me, look, I don't care what Usyk is getting, because it's not coming out of me. It's not coming out of my percentage. If the fighters were arguing 55, 45, 60, 40, any change in the percentage was more for one fighter, less for the other. In this era, where the entertainment, Riyadh Season Entertainment Fund is footing the bill, the fact that Usyk is getting X dollars and Tyson is getting Y dollars, it's not coming out of either of them. They don't care what the other guy is getting. They're smart people. So I think that's going to make it easier as we go on, if this continues, to make big fights in the heavyweight division and whatever other divisions in boxing the Saudi fund is interested in getting involved in.
Bob, have a great birthday week. I look forward to seeing you in Saudi Arabia on fight week for December 23rd. And thanks so much for not mocking me for the blue glasses tonight, even though I'm indoors.
I may not see him December 23rd because I have a small event in Japan on December 26th featuring, I think, the top fighter in boxing today, the monster Inoue, who's going for his third undisputed world title.
I'd forgotten about that. Enjoy. Maybe you can go from Riyadh to there.
Brad Jacobs is younger. He's doing both.
Okay, fine. We'll see Brad there then.
Old guy. It's really tough to ask me to do that.
Bob, thank you so much for your time as always. It's really appreciated. Stay well and enjoy the week.
Okay. Thank you, Gareth.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, Gareth.